The peripheral nervous system consists of all the nervous tissue which are located outside the central nervous system. First, we are going to consider about the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. There are 12 pairs of cranial nerves which emerge from brain, and there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves which emerge from the spinal cord. First, we are going to learn about the cranial nerves. There are 12 pairs of cranial nerves which arise from brain. These are numbered according to the emergence order from the brain, that is, from anterior to the posterior side of the brain. Some cranial nerves are sensory nerves, some are motor nerves, while others are mixed nerves which contain both sensory and motor neurons. The cranial nerve 1 and 2 are sensory nerves, while all the other 10 nerves are mixed nerves. These are the 12 pairs of cranial nerves: the olfactory nerve, optic nerve, oculomotor nerve, trochlear nerve, trigeminal nerve, abducens nerve, facial nerve, vestibulocochlear nerve, glossopharyngeal nerve, vagus nerve, accessory nerve, and hypoglossal nerve. This image shows you the order of emergence of these nerves from the brain. Go through it carefully and get an idea. The first cranial nerve is the olfactory nerve, which is important for the sense of smell. So, the free nerve endings of the olfactory nerve located in the roof of the nasal cavity. So, it starts from the nasal mucosa and then extend through the cribriform plate and enter into the olfactory bulb, where we can see the cell bodies of these neurons. And then the axons go through the olfactory tract. In this picture, you can see the olfactory epithelium and how the axons of olfactory receptors get together form a bundle, which enters to the olfactory bulb, and there they passes the impulses to the cell bodies which are located in the olfactory bulb. And the axons of these neurons get together and form a bundle which form olfactory tract. The cranial nerve 2 is the optic nerve, which is responsible for the sense of sight. So it starts from the wall of the eyeball, that is retina. Retina contains the sensory neuronal cells, and the axons of these cells get together and form the optic nerve, and it leaves the eyeball. Then these two optic nerves from left and right meets at optic chiasma. Here at optic chiasma, some nerve fibers get crossed over. That means some nerve fibers which comes from the right side after going through the optic chiasma enter the left side, and the other way around. So then they continue as the optic tract, and these axons go through the optic tract to the thalamus. There in the thalamus, they synapse with other neurons. So in this picture, you can see the retina, which is a part of the wall of eyeball, and it contains bipolar cells, the sensory cells, and the axons of the cells form the optic nerve. Then optic nerve enter optic chiasma, and it continues as optic tract, which takes the impulses to the brain. The third cranial nerve is oculomotor nerve. You can see what its function by its name. Oculo means eye, motor means movement. So that means oculomotor nerve is important for the movement of eye. Therefore, it innervates the skeletal muscles of the eyeball. So it takes impulses from the brain to the skeletal muscles, which are important for the movement of the eyeball. In this picture, you can see how this oculomotor nerve innervates the skeletal muscles of the eye. The fourth cranial nerve is trochlear nerve. It is also a motor nerve. It starts from the brain and innervates only a single skeletal muscle of the eyeball. It is the superior oblique muscle of the eye. The impulses which comes from the trochlear nerve is also important for the movement of the eyeball. In this picture you can see how trochlear nerve innervates the superior oblique muscle of the eyeball. The fifth cranial nerve is trigeminal nerve. It is the biggest cranial nerve. It originates from the pons and then it split into three divisions. Those are ophthalmic, maxillary and mandibular. So its name shows these three divisions, the trigeminal nerve. It is a mixed nerve. It takes sensory information from face to the brain, and it takes motor information from the brain to the muscles of the mandibular. In this image, you can see how this trigeminal nerve divides into three parts and how these three parts innervate different parts of your face. The ophthalmic division innervates mainly the upper part of the face, including the area around eye. And then the maxillary division innervates around the cheek. And then the mandibular division innervates around the chin. This image also gives you the idea how these three parts of the trigeminal nerve innervates different parts of your face. The sixth cranial nerve is the abducens nerve. It starts from the brain stem and it supplies the lateral rectus muscle of the eye. The impulses from this nerve is responsible for the coordinated motion of the eyes and neck. So in this picture, you can see the main cranial nerves which are important for the movement of the eye. The oculomotor nerve, the third cranial nerve, the trochlear nerve, the fourth cranial nerve, and the abducens nerve, the sixth cranial nerve. The seventh cranial nerve is the facial nerve. It also originates from the pons. It is a mixed nerve which contains motor as well as sensory nerve fibers. It conveys motor impulses to facial skeletal muscles, except for mandibular muscles. And it conveys parasympathetic motor impulses to tear glands, nasal glands, and subsalivary glands. And it conveys sensory information from taste buds on anterior two-thirds of the tongue. Facial nerve is a mixed nerve. The motor part of the facial nerve innervates the skeletal muscles of the face as well as some glands which are located in the face. And also, the sensory part starts from the sensory organs of the face, for example, taste buds of the tongue, and these sensory nerve endings enter to the facial nerve in order to enter into the brain. The eighth cranial nerve is called auditory nerve or vestibular cochlear nerve. It is mainly important for the hearing and also for the maintenance of balance in the body. It originates from the pons and divides into two parts called cochlear and vestibular. The fibers from cochlea in the inner eye form the cochlear part of this nerve. It is important for the hearing. And the fibers from equilibrium receptors located in the inner eye form the vestibular part of this nerve. It is important for the maintenance of balance of the body. This picture shows you how the sensory nerve endings are arising from vestibule and cochlea of the inner ear. The sensory nerves which arises from vestibule get together and form the vestibular branch of the nerve. And the sensory nerve endings which arise from the cochlea get together and form the cochlear branch of the nerve. The vestibular branch and cochlear branch get together form the vestibular cochlear nerve, that is, the 8th cranial nerve. The 9th cranial nerve is the Glossopharyngeal Nerve. Its name gives you the idea what is its function. Glosso means tongue. Pharyngeal is pharynx, so it innervates the tongue and pharynx as well as the salivary glands. This nerve is also a mixed nerve which has motor as well as sensory functions. The motor functions are carried out by the motor fibers which innervate from swallowing muscles of the pharynx and also the parasympathetic fibers which innervate some salivary glands. The sensory functions is carried out by the sensory nerve endings which arise from the pharynx as well as the tongue. So, taste, touch, heat from the pharynx and the posterior tongue is carried out to the brain. Also, information from chemoreceptors on the level of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the blood and information from baroreceptors on blood pressure is also taken to brain to this 9th cranial nerve. So here in this picture you can see how this glossopharyngeal nerve innervates the tongue, the salivary glands and also the muscles of the pharynx. The 10th cranial nerve is the vagus nerve. It is a very important nerve. That is because all the other cranial nerves innervate head and neck. Vagus nerve is the only cranial nerve which extends beyond the head and neck. The fibers of the vagus nerve start from the medulla of the brain and then leave the skull, and it goes downward into the thorax as well as abdomen. The vagus nerve is also a mixed nerve which has the motor as well as sensory functions. The motor functions are carried out by the parasympathetic nerve fibers which innervates heart, lung and abdominal organs. The sensory functions are carried out by the sensory nerve endings which start from the thoracic and abdominal viscera and from baroreceptors and chemoreceptors which are located in carotid sinus and also from taste bud in posterior tongue and the pharynx. In this picture you can see what are the thoracic and abdominal organs which are innervated by vagus nerve. The 11th cranial nerve is the accessory nerve. It is formed by the union of two roots, the cranial root and the spinal root. The cranial root joins with vagus nerve and innervates larynx, pharynx and the soft palate. The spinal root innervates the muscles of the neck. So in this picture you can see how the accessory nerve innervates the muscles of the neck as well as larynx, pharynx and the soft palate. The 12th cranial nerve is hypoglossal nerve. It arises from medulla and innervates the tongue. It innervates the intrinsic and extrinsic muscles of the tongue. Therefore, it is important for the swallowing, speech and food manipulation. So in this picture, you can see what are the structures innervated by hypoglossal nerve. According to its name, that is hypo, that is below, glossal, the tongue. So the structures below the tongue are innervated by this nerve. So this is a summary on the cranial nerve and their function. You should remember the number of the cranial nerve, the name of the cranial nerve, and also the function of each cranial nerve. So this is the end of the first part of the lecture on peripheral nervous system.